Hello folks, in this video we will learn about component lifecycle. Now when Angular renders a component, there are several things that happen in the background. There are three main steps that Angular takes whenever it loads up a component, and those are that it creates or instantiates the component or the component class, then it renders or displays that component on the view that you all can see, and once you navigate to some other component, it will call the destroy or it will delete that component from the current DOM. So these are the three main steps that Angular takes in its entire component lifecycle. So a component goes from creation to being displayed to being destroyed, and this is called the component lifecycle of Angular. For each component, all of these steps are taken. Now, what are hooks? Well, if you want to do some action at the creation of a component, for example, in our blog list view or the blog list component, what if we wanted to fetch the list of all the posts that you want to display to the user when the component is created? And every time a component is created, you want to fetch that latest list again. Now you can do that using something called as hook. A hook is just a function which is called at the appropriate stage of the Angular component life cycle. Alright, so let's go over the order in which these are called. The first hook that is called is the constructor. Any class, when it gets instantiated or an object is created of that class, the first thing that is called is the constructor. In TypeScript, as we have seen, every component is a class in itself. Hence, first thing that is called is the constructor. Then ng-on-changes is a hook which gets called every time the value of an input property changes. And this hook is called multiple times. As many times as there are changes in some or the other property, this hook gets called or this function gets triggered. Now, ng-on-init is called once all the values are initialized, which means that in constructor we still don't have access to certain values like the input values that come from another parent component, but on ng-on-init we have the access to all the properties since they all are initialized here. So this is called only once during entire life cycle of the component, and any initialization that you want to do like variable assignment or getting data from some remote server or doing any activity that you want to do at the initialization point, then you should do it in ng-on-init, and this is the most used hook out of all of these. ng-do-check will check if that view is registered in the DOM. ng after content init is basically done when the child component gets initialized, and from content init to view checked, these four hooks are called for the child component, or these are called in context of the child component. Following that, there is ng on destroy, which will be called when you move away from this component and navigate to some other component. This component is no longer needed in the DOM or the document object model. So as you can see, the application is already running and I have written a sample code. I created a new component called hooks.component.ts, and inside this I have imported all the lifecycle hooks here. What I have done is that my class implements all these interfaces. Basically, each of these interfaces has only one method, which is the lifecycle hook itself. So what I simply have to do is inside my class, there is a constructor, and then I have to implement all these methods in my class in order to resolve the error, because I have implemented all of these interfaces. So it is a must that I must implement all these methods in my class. Go to inspect, console. We can see that all the hooks were called. Let's refresh it. Alright, let's refresh the page and you can see the order in which these hooks were called. So we have learnt about all the hooks here, and you can see that the on destroy hook wasn't called. That is because the view is still in the DOM and we haven't moved away from this view. Hence, the destroy logic isn't called yet, But in further modules, when we implement more than one routes in our application, we will see how on destroy is used to remove any unused subscriptions or dereference any variables and do basically cleanup activity in our component. All right, that is it for this one. Let's meet in the next video. Thank you.